we are going to discuss about diffusion and facilitated diffusion in the chapter of cell, the unit of life. Now we are going to discuss about diffusion. What is diffusion? Diffusion is the movement of solute particles from area of its high concentration to area of its lower concentration until it reaches equilibrium. If you have remembered that in the osmosis we discussed about, in osmosis solvent molecules are required, whereas in diffusion solute particles are required. And during the process of diffusion you must remember three important things. Firstly, in diffusion solute particles are required, not solvent molecules. And in diffusion semi-permeable membrane is not essential, whereas in case of osmosis semi-permeable membrane is essential. And both osmosis and diffusion are passive process. As you can see in this diagram, this is diagram can clearly make you understand the differentiation between osmosis and diffusion. In case of osmosis, semi-permeable membrane is required. So this is the semi-permeable membrane, whereas in diffusion there is no semi-permeable membrane. And in case of osmosis and diffusion, although the movement is from high concentration to low concentration, as you can see here the concentration is high and here the concentration is low, so the molecules will move from high to low concentration. In case of diffusion, here the concentration is high and here the concentration is low, the molecules will move from high to low concentration. But in osmosis solvent molecules are required, whereas in case of diffusion solute particles are required. And in case of osmosis solvent molecules are required. So in case of solute particles may be liquid, may be solid, or may be gas. In case of liquid, the example is lime water. In case of lime water, lime juice is squeezed in water. So if the solute particle is solid, the example is dissolving sugar in water, because in that case the sugar is dissolved in water. And if the solute particle is gas, then the example is carbonated beverages. So in case of carbonated beverages, carbon dioxide is added in the cold drinks. So the solute particles may be liquid, solid, or gaseous. So next is the factors affecting the process of diffusion. The first factor is temperature. Means temperature is very important, and increasing temperature increases the process of diffusion. For example, if we are cooking food in the kitchen and this um, and in that, for cooking the food, heat is provided, so heat energy is provided. So you know that the energy can be converted from one form to energy can be converted from one form to another form. So here heat energy is converted to kinetic energy. So here heat energy is converted to kinetic energy. Because of the kinetic energy, molecules strike to one another, and molecules can travel a distance, and we can smell the food from if the food is cooking in the kitchen, we can smell the food even sitting in the room. So the temperature is very important. Next is density of medium. Means density of medium is very important. So there is a you can clearly understand is you can clearly understand this point through Graham's law. In case of Graham's law, there is the Graham's law is d is inversely proportional to 1 by under root of small d. So this capital D is the diffusion, and this small d represents density. So here in case of diffusion, if the density is if the substance is dense or the density is more, then the process of diffusion will be slower, and if the density is less, than the process of diffusion will be faster. For example, if we talk about a wooden block, in case of wooden block, the molecules are closely arranged to one another, so there will be the no space for, or there will be the negligible space or very less space for the process of diffusion. So in that case the process of diffusion is hindered, because the molecules are arranged closely. Whereas in case of liquid, here the molecules are at a distance, so here the process of the diffusion is facilitated compared to solid wooden block. Whereas in case of gases, here the molecules are very far from each other, and here the space is present, so here the process of diffusion is faster compared to solid and liquid. So the density of medium is very important. If the density is less or substance is less dense, then the process of diffusion is faster. Next point is concentration gradient. In case of concentration and the diffusion, there is the, you can see there is a direct link, that it is the diffusion is directly proportional to concentration gradient. Means if the concentration of substance is more, then the process of diffusion will be faster, and if the concentration of substance is less, then the process of diffusion will be slower. For example, if we are in the room and the perfume is sprayed, and perfume is sprayed in much amount, so here the concentration is more, so you can smell the fragrance of perfume very quickly because the concentration is more. But if we are in the room and the perfume is sprayed in a very less amount, and because the concentration is less, so after some time we can smell the fragrance of perfume that something was sprayed. So it means the concentration gradient is very important, and there is direct relationship between concentration gradient and diffusion. Means the concentration is more, then the process diffusion will be faster. If the concentration is less and less perfume is sprayed, then the process of diffusion will be less, and after some time the smell or the fragrance of perfume can be detected. Next is distance, and means the process of diffusion is also affected by distance. Means if there is a distance, very much distance, then the process of diffusion is affected. For example, if I am cooking the food in my kitchen, so my sister who is sitting in the room, she can smell the food, means something is being cooked in the kitchen. But if but the person in my neighborhood, the person cannot smell the food because the molecules cannot travel much distance. So the process of diffusion is also affected by the distance. Means if the distance is less, then the process of diffusion is not affected, but the distance is more, then the process of diffusion is affected. Means if the distance is less, means I am in the kitchen and cooking something, my sister which is in the room can smell the food, or because the distance is less. But if someone is my neighborhood, the distance is more, that someone in the neighborhood cannot smell the food because distance is more. So now next is the application of diffusion. The first application of diffusion is exchange of respiratory gases. Like diffusion, exchange of respiratory gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen take place through the process of diffusion. Next is transpiration. In case of transpiration, the loss of water molecules is also take place through the process of diffusion. And next point is, or next application of diffusion is the distribution of substances from one cell to another cell. For example, the food is prepared by plant, and now the next step is the distribution of food from one cell to another cell. So this will be the process of diffusion. Means no membrane is required, and it is a passive process, and it will move from high concentration to low concentration. Means in one cell, if this is the one cell here, and here the other cells are present, so here the food is more, and in the outside, in the surrounding cells, the food is less. So the food molecules or food will be distributed from high concentration to low concentration. So distribution of food from one cell to another cell, the process of transpiration, exchange of respiratory gases are all application of diffusion. Next is facilitated diffusion. In case of facilitated diffusion, the transport of molecules or ions across the plasma membrane from high concentration to low concentration through transport protein. So here in facilitated diffusion, the molecules or ions are involved, and here the transport is across the plasma membrane from area of its high concentration to area of its low concentration. And here facilitated diffusion, transport proteins are play a very important role. So this is the diagram, and but before coming to the diagram, let me tell you the difference between osmosis diffusion and facilitated diffusion. In osmosis, semi-permeable membrane is required. In diffusion, semi-permeable membrane is not required or is not essential. And in facilitated diffusion, transported protein play a very important role. So here this is the diagram, and this diagram will clearly make you understand the difference between simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. So this is the simple diffusion, and in case of the simple diffusion, semi-permeable membrane is not essential, and here just the movement of solute particles from area of its high concentration to area of its low concentration. Means here the concentration is high and here is concentration is low, so the molecules will move from high concentration to low concentration. Whereas in case of facilitated diffusion, here the transport proteins are involved, and the transport proteins are carrier protein and channel protein. So here the carrier protein or channel protein play a very important role in transporting the substance from outside of the cell to inside of the cell, or inside of the cell to outside of the cell. So here, for example, in case of plant cell, some substances cannot be taken in through the plasma membrane because of the hydrophobic nature of lipid, because this is the lipid bilayer and this is the one lipid molecule. Here the head region is hydrophilic and here the tail region, and this tail region is hydrophobic. So because of the hydrophobicity of plasma membrane, some substances cannot be taken in through the plasma membrane in plant cell, and these substances can be glucose, sodium ions, and chloride ions, and these substances cannot be taken in through the plasma membrane. So in that case, the special pathways are present, and these pathways are the carrier protein and the channel protein. So these carrier protein and the channel protein will help in the transportation of these substances from outside to the inside of the cell. So for example, here these substances are the glucose molecules, and these glucose molecules cannot be taken in through plasma membrane. So here the carrier protein is present, and this carrier protein will help in to take in the glucose molecules. So there is a difference between simple diffusion and this is the difference between simple and facilitated diffusion. In facilitated diffusion, some facility is present, like the facility in terms of carrier protein and the channel protein are present to take in the substances, whereas in case of simple diffusion, this is the simple process, like only the molecules will move from high concentration to low concentration.